Back to order here. We're on to item 7B, adoption of an ordinance repealing ordinances number 952, codified in Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 2.40, Affirmative Action Program. Debbie Lund, our Human Resources Coordinator, is here with us this evening, and she's going to speak to this matter.
Good evening. As you see outlined in the staff report, the municipal code currently contains a chapter on the affirmative action, which was implemented by the city in 1975. The voters in the state of Washington then essentially repealed affirmative action in 1998. And here we are in 2019, and local governments again have the opportunity to enact affirmative action programs effective at the end of the month, or July 29th, I believe. The language in the municipal code is just troubling to staff, and the amount of detail it provides and naming of employees that essentially would become almost full-time affirmative action officers for the city. So the staff request is to repeal the section of the Municipal Code 2.40, just to give us a chance to kind of get our heads around the intent of the new legislation that was passed.
Okay. Any questions, or is there a motion?
Mayor, I'd move to adopt an ordinance which repeals Ordinance 952, codified at Chapter 2.40 of the Port Orchard Municipal Code, to allow staff time to evaluate the impacts to the city of the passage of the Washington State Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Act proposed by the citizens as Initiative 1000.
Second.
Motion and a second. You got a question? Okay. And this is really, go ahead, Councilmember Chang.
Question, can you give me an idea of how long you think it would take to study this, and is there a deadline that we might hear from you on it?
Haven't set a deadline for it. We already have non-discrimination policies and practices in place, and so that's something that we would want to discuss with the management team.
So the code we had was just out of date. It's a state law that, remember we're a code city, and we can have, we have to follow state law, and if it's silent, then we can have code. And there's now a state law through this initiative, and we didn't feel that the code that we had passed in the 70s was appropriate.
But it's not like by repealing this particular ordinance, it's not like we're going to go without. We're still under the governance of the state law.
So. Yeah, that is correct. Yep. We can have code where state law is silent. Am I not correct?
We have an motion.
We have a motion and a second, and we're in discussion. That is correct.
Good job.
All right. So further discussion or questions? Okay. You'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance repealing ordinance number 952, codified in Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 2.40, Affirmative Action Program. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to 7C, adoption of an ordinance revising ordinance number 010-19 and clarifying benefits for non-union employees. Ms. Lund is here again.
I mean, this is really a housekeeping. This is just a little bit of cleanup from a previously adopted ordinance to reflect the intent of the council. The language in the original ordinance inadvertently left out a couple groups of employees. The FLSA exempt categories include professional, which was in the original ordinance, but also includes, executive exemption, which is one of 4 now primary exemptions. You can also exempt people from the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is essentially whether or not you get overtime. If you are administrative personnel, if you're professional personnel, and some computer positions, those are the ones that generally apply to local government. So I don't believe it was council's intent to exclude professional and administrative and computer exempt personnel when they adopted this ordinance. It also the definition of full-time became kind of different for us in HR when the federal health care reform was passed. And inadvertently, the ordinance, the way it was worded, exempted employees who are participating in our healthcare program and helping us to earn that Well City Award that gives us that discount from AWC. It excluded them from receiving the wellness incentive that this ordinance adopted into the HRA. So there's a cleanup of that one as well. And then just that clarifying that the full-time does mean over 30 hours a week now, because that's what the ACA requires.
Councilmember Rosa Puppy.
I'd like to make a move to adopt an ordinance which revises Ordinance 010-19 and clarifies the benefits offered to non-union city employees.
Second.
I got a second by Councilmember Clausen. Debbie has brought a fresh set of eyes to HR, and which has been refreshing. She's actually found a number of things which we've had here before us tonight. So I appreciate the work that Debbie's doing. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions of this ordinance? Okay. Hearing none, you'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance revising ordinance number 019-19 and clarifying benefits for non-union employees. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to 7D, and at this point in our meeting, we are going to take a 10-minute recess and enter into a separate meeting related to collective bargaining before we take action on the union contract that is our next action item. It is our bargaining session is pursuant to RCW 42.30.140 4B. The council can convene in a session that a portion of the meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining, professional negotiations or grievance or mediation proceedings, or reviewing the proposal made in negotiations or proceeding while in progress. So we will take a 10-minute collective bargaining session at this time.